Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far and welcome to today's video, which is going to be the next installment of my makeup and movies series. I'm going to be getting ready for the day, using some new products and sharing all of my thoughts on the 6 films that I saw at the cinema this month. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so I have some new brow products to try from MAC today. We've got the MAC Pro Brow Definer and the Pro Locked Brow Gel. I'm also going to be giving the new Fenty foundation another whirl, but I'm going to pair it with my Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless filter, because that's kind of my go-to to get a bit more glow out of foundations that aren't quite as juicy as I love them to be. I'm going to be trying a new shade of the RMS bronzer that I don't think I've used on camera yet. This is Malibu Muse, which I think is the lightest shade of bronzer. I have some new lash products to try from MAC. We've got their Legit Lash Primer and the brown shade of the MAC Stack. Very exciting. I also have the new Surratt liquid highlighter, and I'm going to be using the Jellyfish palette from Hourglass, which isn't new, but the 2 blushes in here are 2 of the blushes from their new blush palette, so you can see how those look on the skin if you're considering picking that up. And then finally I have some new lipsticks from What's Up Beauty with the most stunning packaging and embossing that I've ever seen in my life. Just take a goosey gander at that. Holy moly. So that is what I'm going to be using today while I chat to you about these 6 films that I saw in the last few weeks. I have been a very busy girl at the cinema, okay, and one of these films I ended up accidentally seeing twice. So let's kick it off with the family film of the month, the one that I went to with my children and my husband, and that is Garfield, the new Garfield film. I have seen previous Garfield. I don't know how many there's been. I've definitely seen at least one, and my children do like the television series as well. I've never been a huge fan of it. It's not one of my favourites, but you know, I was figuring it's not about me. We're just going to go and chill out and eat some popcorn and enjoy them enjoying it. So this was okay for me. It wasn't laugh out loud a lot of the time. I did chuckle. I chuckled. There were audible chuckles a few times. My children weren't belly laughing at this, but they both gave it a 10 out of 10. When I asked them what they thought, they both said 10 out of 10. So can't really complain. My grade would probably have been, I think, a 7. It was watchable. It didn't have like a super traumatic storyline like a lot of these children's films do these days for some unknown reason, and it wasn't too scary for them. My son does scare quite easily when it comes to films, and he didn't get scared, and it was all, you know, pretty low-key. You know, it wasn't super clever. I didn't love it. I can't envision us sort of, you know, downloading it as well once it comes out on the television. So yeah, it was okay. I gave it a slightly higher score than I would have done because my children really loved it. So it got an extra mark. I probably would have said for myself a 6, but given that it's for children and they absolutely loved it, I'm giving it an extra mark. So the first sort of grown-ups film that I saw this month was Back to Black. So this is a biopic about Amy Winehouse's life. This is the sort of beginning, from the beginning of her career starting to take off until the tragic end of her life. So I did enjoy this. It was definitely watchable. It wasn't a film I was super excited to go and see. I was a huge Amy Winehouse fan back in the day. I absolutely loved her music, and everything that kind of happened in the film, you know, I saw happen in real life. You know, it was all played out in the media in real time. All of the scenes from the film that were in public, you know, I vividly remember them happening. You know, the performance at Glastonbury, her being pictured in the street, all of that stuff I, you know, vividly remember at the time it was happening, and it was just so tragic. It was just one of the most tragic wastes of just an unbelievable talent and life and potential. And you sort of imagine if she hadn't passed away when she did, the career and what we would have had and what she would have given us over the years to come. you know, we'll never know, and it's just utterly tragic. I think for me, it's just very hard as an Amy Winehouse fan, you know, and having seen a lot of the events of her life sort of played out at the time, it just felt very fluffy to me. I feel like it really could have been, and needed to have been, a lot more gritty and a lot more realistic. It felt very much like a fluffed up Hollywood version, which was like just very fluffy, very sort of rose tinted glasses. And almost at times I felt like we were verging on the glamorization of some of what she was doing. And it was just, yeah, a very sort of fluffy version. Was it all, you know, happiness and rainbows? No, that's not, you know, a pretense that was really made for the film. But it very much felt like, for me, it was just really missing the sort of raw grittiness and the real depths of what she went through and what her life was like, particularly towards the end. I was really glad that they did not sort of cover her passing. I felt like that was really respectful, and I was glad that they didn't do that, because I just think that would have just been wildly inappropriate. It's not okay when, you know, it was so recent and her family is still here, very much here, and yeah, I would not have thought that that was a wise thing to include. So I was glad that they didn't include that in any kind of way. But yeah, just the whole thing felt very much like a fluffed up version of the reality, and I just really wanted it to be a lot grittier and a lot more realistic as to what this actually looked like, and not a sort of fluffy flowers type of version is what it felt like to me. I thought the actress was amazing, I will say that. You know, I think people are always going to say, oh, you could have found someone who looked more like her or who sounded more like her, but I just don't know how you ever find someone who sounded like Amy Winehouse. Like, how could you possibly? She was just so special. Her voice was so unique. The second she opened her mouth, you knew that was Amy Winehouse. And I just don't know how anyone could have, you know, really stood a chance of living up to the expectation of that. It just was not possible. But they did use Amy's, you know, real songs a lot throughout the film, which I thought was a good choice. And I thought the actress was great. I just felt like it was very, like, fluffy and just not really very realistic to how her life really was. I wanted it to really reflect the raw pain and the trauma, and it just to be a patch of what it really was like. It felt like a spoon-fed version, you know? So I'm gonna give this a 6.5, and a lot of those marks are for the actress and the amount of Amy Winehouse music that we got in the film, which I did enjoy. But it was almost like this fluffy sort of love story as opposed to like the reality of her life. By the way, I'm using the Natasha Denona Retro Glam palette today, which isn't new, but I've just really had like a craving, a hankering after using this the last few days, so I'm gonna. So the next film I saw was Challengers, starring the absolutely phenomenal Zendaya. So this is about a young tennis player at the very beginning of an elite career. So about to go pro, starting college. She's basically deciding to go to college and put off turning pro because she wants to get an education, but she's an absolute star, up and coming, huge professional star in the making at the beginning, kind of at the beginning of what will be a very illustrious career. And it's kind of a bit of a love story, bit of a love triangle with a couple of other players on the circuit, but it also very much centers around her life, and she sustains an injury basically. So it's kind of a bit of a focus on tennis and her career and the competitive nature of that sport and the circuit and all of that stuff, and it's a little bit of a love story as well. So this one was a little hit and miss for me. I absolutely love Zendaya in everything she does, and I think she did an amazing job. For me, being the big sports fan that I am, I just really desperately wanted this to have like more about the tennis in it. You know, we did get some good scenes of like tennis play, but I guess I was expecting it to be a bit more tennis focused than I was like the love story focus, and there really wasn't that much about the tennis or about the career. It really was a sort of a tennis themed love story essentially, with a, you know, a bit of a tangle and a bit of a twist, and, you know, a bit of grittiness in there as well, a bit of pain. But yeah, there wasn't a lot of focus on the sport, which for me personally I would have loved, because you guys know I'm a sporty girl. So yeah, I kind of was expecting it to be more about the tennis and less about like the love interests, but I feel like it was like 70-30 love interest, not even that, maybe 80-20 love interest tennis, and I would have liked it the other way around. But you know, that's just personal preference, that's just my personal thing. I love the actors, I thought it was really watchable. Did it wow me? Not necessarily, but I did enjoy it. I'm going to give it a 7, and I've taken off a full mark because of the ending, which was absolutely unacceptable. Okay, now I'm not going to give it away, but I will say, if you do see it, I'm sure you'll agree, unacceptable ending. Okay, so that's a mark off, because outrageous. Well, I've made such a mess over here and I don't even know what I've done. So next up, let's talk about the Fall Guy. Now, I had seen a trailer. I'd seen the trailer for this film, I think several times before I went to see the film, because it just seemed to be really being done to death, this trailer, in all the films that I saw sort of in the last month. I had seen this trailer multiple times. It didn't appeal to me. It seemed really, that was something just really like cringy and cheesy about the trailer that was really putting me off. It just did not seem like I was going to like it. It did not seem like my type of film at all. So I solely went to see this because there was just nothing else on, and so I thought, oh fine, it'll do. I'll go and see it for, you know, for giggles, for this video. I'll be able to tell you what I think about it, expecting very, very low expectations, okay? Put it that way. I loved this. I absolutely loved it. I think the trailer is really doing it no favours. It's got Emily Blunt and Ryan... It stars Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling, both of whom I absolutely love, but for some reason, I just don't know what was happening in the trailer. They just seemed really unlikable and annoying, and I felt like Emily Blunt's character was going to be really irritating, but she really isn't. I loved them both in this. I loved the plot. I loved how much action. Obviously, it's a film basically about stuntmen in films. It follows the story of one specific stuntman, but they are really like the stars of this film, is the stunt people, not only the people who do the stunts, but the crew behind them who, you know, do all of the pyrotechnics and stage everything. They are very much like the stars of this film, which I love. I think that's great that we're sort of focusing on that in a film, because quite often, you know, they are like the hidden heroes of film, aren't they? So I'm not being funny, I'm loving this eyeshadow today. I knew I wanted to use this palette. It was so entertaining. There are so many stunts. Obviously, you know, it's about a stuntman, but they are literally constant stunts, stunt fighting, stunt, you know, products, props, cards, all, like everything you can possibly think of is just constantly coming at you in this film. It is so much action, and I'm not an action film kind of girl, but there's also, you know, some romance. There's also a lot of giggles. I was laughing all the way through this film. It was so good. I absolutely loved it. And then my children wanted to see it. So this is a 12A, and my children are 8 and 10. 12A, I don't know if this is the same everywhere, but in the UK, a 12A basically means that anyone under 12 can see it if they're with an adult. And obviously, because I'd seen it myself, I knew that I was okay with what was in the film. There's no sort of real sexy time. There's no real awful violence. There's a lot of sort of stunt fights, battles. There's nothing that I thought was unacceptable for them. You know, knowing my children, there was nothing that I thought was not appropriate for them. There's a little bit of minor language, but they know, you know, what words they can and can't say and what are grown-up words. So I agreed to let them see it, but I was very pessimistic as to how this was going to go. I fully expected them to be bored out of their mind. I didn't think they would enjoy it. I thought it was like too grown up for them. You know, we usually typically go and see, you know, films that are targeted very much targeted for children. Even the length of it, you know, it's longer than a typical children's film, so I thought they'd get bored and restless. They loved this film so much. They were laughing their heads off. You know, the jokes very much worked for children and adults. They absolutely loved it. I've never really seen them laugh that much, like especially a grown-ups film. And my son at the end said it was the best film he's ever seen in his life. He literally wanted to see it again, and that shocked me. I fully thought they were going to be bored, but they loved it. It was just so, there's just so much action, it's so exciting, it's so funny. It just has something for everybody, apparently. So I absolutely love this. I'm going to give it a 9. I feel like it almost warrants a 10, but this is about as high as I can give this type of film. I feel like in order to be a 10, okay, a film has to have like changed me inherently, taught me something. I have to have had some kind of like soul-searching experience to be a 10. So I'm not sure a sort of action comedy rom-com mashup can reach a 10, but if it could, it would. It was as good as I could possibly imagine a film of this genre being. I just, in all good conscience, I just don't feel like I can give it a 10 because, like I said, it didn't change my life, and I feel like that's what you need to do to get a 10. But I absolutely loved it. It was so good. Not even really my kind of film. We all loved it. 9 out of 10. Go see it. When my children told me that that's what they wanted to go and see, I was like, oh God, because I literally had seen it the day before and I thought, really not sure I want to sit through the whole thing again. I think I enjoyed it even more the second time. The next film I went to see was the new Planet of the Apes film, and I definitely have some mixed feelings on this, okay? I've seen some of the previous Planet of the Apes films, namely like the more old school ones. I haven't really seen, I don't think, any of the more recent ones. The thing is, the thing I learned about myself during this film, and I feel like this may disappoint some of you, so I can only apologise. I'm kind of disappointed in myself, to be honest, okay? So the thing I learned about myself that I'm shocked by, okay, is that I find it hard to connect emotionally with chimps, okay? This was brand new information for me. And I know it's not an animal thing, because show me The Lion King and I'll be bawling like a baby, okay? And that's a cartoon. Show me Marley and Me, I won't get out of bed for 3 to 5 business days. But I really struggled with this one to just connect with like the ape characters. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the fact that they are really disturbing to look at. There's just something really bizarre and disturbing about them. And although, you know, there's goodies and there's baddies in the chimp world, even the goodies, I just discovered that I didn't care if they lived or died. I'm so sorry. But I just really couldn't be invested in them, I found. And I was surprised because that's not something I typically struggle with. I am invested in everything and everybody, okay? If anything, I'm usually over invested in literally everything. When it comes to films, I'll cry at literally anything, okay? Not a tear was shed in this film, and quite a lot of sad things happened. And I was just like, okay, oh well. Like I didn't care. And I know that makes me sound like a serial killer or a sociopath. And maybe this is just me. Maybe no one else feels the same way and I need to go to therapy. I don't know. It was fine. I was following, the storyline was nice. You know, the effects are amazing. The costumes, the makeup, everything was amazing. It had, a good, interesting storyline. I found it watchable. I was mildly entertained, but I just was missing like that investment in the storyline, you know, and the characters. Typically, when you've got a film like this, like I feel like if they had been dogs or if they had been humans, I would have been like bawling, I would have been rooting for people, I would have been gripped. And I just found myself like, you know, being nonplussed a lot of the time. And I didn't think that I was like an ape hater before this film, but obviously they're not real apes. I also feel like had I watched, you know, an episode of David Attenborough in the jungle with some real apes, I probably would have cried at that. I think it's these specific apes because they're so bonkers looking. They're so terrifying and I just can't find myself invested in their lives. I don't know what's wrong with me. Is it just me? Does everyone feel this way? Is that normal? Do I need to seek help? Help me. I don't know. But yeah, I found it hard to connect. So I was just kind of watching it, not emotionally invested, and I wanted to be. You know, I missed that. I missed being emotionally invested. I was going in expecting to have a good cry. And a couple of times, you know, things were happening and I was like, uh-oh, here come the tears. And they just didn't come. My eyes couldn't cry for the apes. So I'm a little on the fence with this one. I feel like it was a good film and it deserves a decent score, but I really was missing the connection, the investment. So I'm going to give it a 7. I will also say that it felt a little long to me. It felt a little unnecessarily long. But again, perhaps if I was a bit more invested, it wouldn't have felt so long. So I don't know. If you've seen this or you've seen Planet of the Apes films in general, let me know. Is it me or does everyone feel this way? Is this normal? I want to know. Tell me, help me. Am I normal? Am I a weirdo? I don't know. Something else I just want to add about that film is if you haven't ever seen a Planet of the Apes film or anything like that before, you will absolutely be fine seeing this. I think it works like absolutely perfectly fine as a standalone film. You don't really need to know the background. There is a little bit of an intro that sort of explains some of the history, but yeah, you can absolutely go in and watch this as your first ever Planet of the Apes film and you won't sort of not know what's going on or be lost or anything like that, which I liked, because as much as I have seen a couple of the older films, I haven't seen all of it, so I did not feel lost or like confused or anything like that. So yeah, you don't need to have seen the others to appreciate this one. Okay, so the last film that I saw last week was The Strangers Chapter 1. We need to talk about this, okay? This, I have so much to tell you about this one. So this is obviously a horror film, okay, and it's one of the scariest franchises. I saw the original Strangers film in the cinema and it's a core memory. It sticks with me. This is the original was one of my favorite ever horror films. I absolutely love it. It is terrifying. I just love how clever like the build of it is. It's almost like 90% of the film you're waiting for something to happen. There's really only like anything major that happens in like the last 10%, and it's just so cleverly done. The build of the fear and the events just building and building so slowly but so suspensefully. It's absolutely genius. I'm a huge fan of the first film. As soon as I saw the trailer for this one, I was beside myself, but it being a horror film, and you guys know I have to go by myself because especially when it comes to horror films, you know, we have young children, someone has to pick them up from school, and horror films are always on at night, and we don't have, you know, a babysitter that we would leave our children with at night time. So I knew I was going to have to go and see this by myself if I wanted to, but I knew it was going to be terrifying. And so I was really on the fence as to whether I was going to be able to do it. I posted about this on my story saying to you guys, I really want to go and see this, but can I do it? I know it's going to be so scary and it's only on at night, even more scary on my own. What should I do? And I did it. And I'm actually very proud of myself that I did do that, because this was very much outside of my comfort zone. Going at night on my own to a horror film, terrifying prospect. So as I said, the original is one of my all-time favorites. If you haven't seen the original, you definitely don't need to see it to appreciate this one. And in fact, I would say probably you'd be better off, and I'll explain. So the original Strangers is basically about a couple who have gone to stay in a cabin in the woods. What a great and safe idea. Said no one ever. And they get a little knock on the door at some point during the night, and it's like a young female who they can't really see in the dark of the porch asking after someone who is not either of them and does not live there. They are staying, it's like their friend's cabin, right? So this is the original, the first film. They're staying there, it's nighttime, someone knocks on the door and they say, "Hello, is Timothy there?" And that's literally exactly what they sound like, by the way. So I didn't want to hear anything about the voice. That was an absolute spot on impression. And I won't hear any different. And so they just sort of say, no, you know, I think you've got the wrong house, and the person goes away, and then it happens again and it's the same person, and now they're a bit freaked out and things just get worse and worse from there. Okay, I'm not going to give any more spoilers just in case you haven't seen the first one and you want to, but I absolutely love it so much. At the time I felt like it was such, and I know it sounds crazy to say it's an original type of storyline given that it's, you know, people staying in a cabin in the woods, but in a different way. Just the way that the film progresses and the suspense factor and all of that stuff about how everything comes about, it's quite different to anything I had seen at the time, and I absolutely loved that film so much. It was one of the scariest films I'd ever seen at that point, and it was one of my all-time favourites. So I was so excited when I saw the trailer for a new one coming, and it was called Chapter 1. What I was expecting was some kind of like origin story. That's kind of what I was expecting from Chapter 1. That's Eye of Ra. I think I might try another shade. Like, I thought maybe we're going to find out how the strangers came to be, how they formed their little murderous gang, how this started. Maybe this was going to be like their first outing of this nature, maybe like the background of their lives. I don't know. That's what I was expecting, just because it was called Chapter 1. Seba. Beautiful. So it's not to say that I didn't enjoy this film or I didn't think it was a good film, but it was literally identical to the first one. It was exactly the same storyline, exactly the same plot, with all of the same twists, and literally everything played out in the exact same way as the original. And this is Ankh. And so given that I had seen the original and I was just expecting a bit more, something a bit different, it was so disappointing. You know, I fully knew what was going to happen at every single moment, and I couldn't believe that they just didn't do something more different. You know, the beginning and how the people sort of arrive at the cabin was a slightly different little bit, but some of it I just thought, oh, this is such a shame, because it's so well done. And if you hadn't seen the first one, this would have been like a 10 out of 10. Absolutely love the film because it's a great horror film. I think it's so good. It is, but it's an actual carbon copy of the first one, and so that was a little sad and a little disappointing to me, because I was so excited for this film, and it was, yeah, a little bit of a letdown, because I just thought it was going to be, you know, a different film, not the same one. It's almost like a remake as opposed to like a new story. And I really thought we were going to get like an origin story that was going to be really interesting, how they came about, how they met, why and how they started doing this, and all of that stuff, because this is what very clearly, I don't know if it's meant to be, but this is very clearly not the first time they're doing this. I felt super disappointed. So for that reason, I can only give it a 6. If I hadn't seen the first one, this would have been a 10. On the horror film scale, it would have been a 10. If you haven't seen the first one or you don't care, it's exactly the same, then it's 10 out of 10. The point's taken off for like the laziness of the storyline being exactly the same as the first one. So next on my list, the next family film we're going to see will be If. There's a lot of good family films coming out at the moment. We've seen obviously Garfield. If is coming out. We've got a new Despicable Me coming, and we also have the very much anticipated, in my house at least, Inside Out sequel. That is the one we're most excited for. Me personally, I saw the trailer for Twisters. Oh, the nostalgia I feel about, I loved the original Twister film, so I'm very excited to see Twisters and take my children, and that will be like, you know, this is like such a deja vu nostalgia moment for me. The next one I've seen a trailer for that I'm so excited for is A Quiet Place Day One. I love those films so much. The trailer looks epic, and it actually looks like it might be different to the previous two. So some people could take notes from that. And one I haven't heard a lot about, and I don't know that I could tell you a lot about it, even having seen the trailer, is The Watched. Now, I don't know about you, but I see M. Night Shyamalan's name and I'm in. I'm all in. Everything that that man touches is gold to me. One of my all-time favorite films is Signs. Oh, I absolutely love that film so much. It's so underrated. Like literally everyone I know hasn't even heard of it. One of my like top 5 films of all time. Obsessed with it. I love everything he does. Even the films that everyone else hates and thinks they're too weird, I love. So I can't wait for that one. I saw a trailer for it when I was watching The Strangers and it looked very weird and bizarre, but classic M. Night Shyamalan. So all I can really tell you about what it seems to be about is a woman gets lost in the woods and she finds herself, she like wakes up and finds herself in like a cave or like a sort of a cellar type of room, right? With one wall that is glass. She wakes up there with a few other people and they say to her, oh, you must have got lost and now you're here like the rest of us. They will be very excited to see someone new. And she's like, who is they? And that night, beings, we don't know who they are or what they are or whether they're human or otherwise, come and watch the humans from behind the glass, and they can't see the beings, but the beings can obviously see them, and it's like their TV show. They come and they watch these people in this room every night. That's the kind of premise of it. I have no idea where this goes or anything else about it. It looked terrifying, it looked creepy, it looked bizarre, right up my street. So those are the films that I'm very excited to see in the next month or so. We've got some really great stuff coming, haven't we? I'm so excited for it all. Please let me know if you've seen any of these films, what your thoughts were. Were they different to mine? Did you feel the same way? What was your favorite film? I think I have to give the winner, the film of the month, to The Fall Guy. It was the unexpected win, and I love it when a film is so much better than you think it's going to be, when you're pleasantly surprised. I love that. I do not like being disappointed unexpectedly, aka The Strangers. That was literally my heartbreak of the year so far, because I thought that was gonna be like my jam, you know, like my cup of tea, and it was just a letdown. I'm so sad about it. Even now I'm sad. But I hope you enjoyed this video and I would love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.